Looking out at you this morning, I can't help but think of my American intellectual history professor, who was once asked to summarize Chief Joseph's famous speech to General Howard at the end of the Nez Perce travail. He paused, looked down at us, and said, "I suppose I would summarize it as follows. Surely you must have something better to do with your time." This morning, Pam and I are enormously grateful for your attendance. We feel just honored and blessed by all who have come. Literally every part of our life is represented here, dating back to my childhood. Friends, family, college classmates, graduate school colleagues, friends, colleagues, bosses from every aspect of my life are here. From our early years in Oregon, our 10 years in Southern California, our 7 years in Michigan, and now our first year in Santa Barbara. And we are grateful, and we feel very blessed. It's also a great joy to be with so many of you who make Westmont such a vital and special place. Just grateful to the Board of Trustees who are seated here in the front, my executive team, seated here to the left, the faculty, just a tremendous, tremendous faculty, loyal, caring, and diligent staff, the wonderful students who I have just loved getting to know, David Winter, our 6th president, and his wife Helene, Stan Gady, our 7th president, and his wife Judy. We had hoped that Lyle Hilligus, our 5th president, and his wife Melissa could be with us. Remember them in your prayers. And then so many new friends from this diverse and culturally rich community of Santa Barbara. Thank you. I am especially honored to have Steve Forbes come to our campus. And Steve, thank you for making the trip. He literally wedged it in between trips to Asia, Europe, and the southern part of the United States. He'll leave immediately after the service to go home so that he can begin another round of trips tomorrow. In 1937, Ruth Kerr had a burning desire to start a school that would combine a deep love for God with rigorous academics. Being a woman of remarkable tenacity, intellect, and character, she set about hiring our first president, Dr. Wallace Emerson, who came to us from Wheaton College in Illinois. Virtually every recorded conversation that I've read of Dr. Emerson's reflects his deep and abiding conviction that the significance of our school would be tied to an unrelenting commitment to academic rigor and an uncompromising emphasis on cultivating a deep love for God. And for our entire history, these twin planks of our institution have guided and sustained us. 30 years ago, I began my own college career. My intention had been to attend the University of Oregon, but through a variety of circumstances, I enrolled at George Fox College in Newberg, Oregon. During high school, I was a very serious student. I took all the hard classes, loved competing in the classroom, and graduated near the top of my class. But I was not intellectually curious. My motivation for study was to get good grades, to qualify for college scholarships, and to stay eligible for sports. Despite my parents' best efforts to enculturate me, efforts that included 7 years of cello lessons, 7 years of piano lessons, Bach festivals, Mozart concerts, art museum visits, famous plays, and more, the idea of spending discretionary time on elective reading or cultural enrichment, as my mother always said, was not part of my makeup. I remember being asked by a friend at the end of school one year what I would read over the summer. Puzzled, I replied, "You mean besides Sports Illustrated?" But then it happened. During my college experience, I had an intellectual awakening, and that awakening has forever changed me. Through a variety of courses, a mix of professors, and especially the influence of a few key friends, I began to read and study everything I could get my hands on. I read history and literature and poetry, would travel to art museums and listen to cello concerts, read music theory and communication theory, and try to understand the systems and structures of our world by reading physics and studying astronomy, taking a ceramics class, reflecting on world civilization, poring over church history and theology. Every area of knowledge became vital and real to me, because I had learned how to look at it in a new way. I could not get enough of this learning. For the first time, the world really began to make sense to me. Not that I could understand it all, but the opportunity to explore it all was the most precious thing I'd ever experienced. I could see how every part of life and every part of our knowledge of life could hold together. My sense of excitement in discovering these patterns of meaning and the opportunity to study all of these great ideas in warm, intimate quarters with close friends and professors began to matter to me. A central part of my intellectual awakening occurred during fall semester of 1980, when I came to Westmont as a consortium exchange student to study with Dr. Gundry, who read our passages this morning. The class I enjoyed with him and the entire semester experience had an absolutely stunning impact on me, and I have been thankful for it ever since. Every session was carefully crafted. It was intended to take us deeper and broader in our knowledge and insight in the subject material. Every class pushed and prodded us to the absolute limits of what we could learn and absorb. Dr. Gundry's clarity of thought was matched by his graciousness of style. What we didn't understand in the classroom, he would discuss with us over lunch or in his office, or even inviting us into his home. He embodied in every way the relentless commitment to excellence that is a hallmark of Westmont and became a guiding ideal for my own life. I have often joked that I was here long enough to fall in love with the college, but not long enough to see any of its problems. My own experience, of course, is not unique. During this first year, I've had the opportunity to travel the country and meet with dozens and dozens of alums. And in their own way, they repeat almost verbatim the very story I've told you this morning, of the deep and abiding appreciation for Westmont, for what the education has done for them, for how it helped them begin to put together what their life would be about, of how God could use them, of how this motive base could sustain them all their life. As we think about the mission and aims of Westmont College, I want to frame for you just briefly the three ways I think about our philosophy of education. I think about what happens to us, what happens inside us, and what happens because of us. When we think about what happens to us when we come to Westmont College, the 5 planks of our mission statement are especially compelling. I've been talking about them all year, and I don't need to rehearse them at length here, but we often talk about the liberal arts, our Christian identity and commitment, our residential life experience, our complete commitment to the undergraduate curriculum, and our global perspective that we want to cultivate. When we look at each of these, we know the long and storied history of the liberal arts. We're part of a 2,500-year history dating back to Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle. But when we look at the liberal arts tradition, one of the great things we begin to notice is that it has never stayed static. As you come down through life, you see Plato's great articulation of it in the Republic, and you read about it in Clement of Alexandria in the Miscellanies. You see Augustine's elaboration of it. You come to Hugh of St. Victor in the late 11th and early 12th century, Bonaventure's great synthesis in the 13th, John Henry Newman in the 19th, and on into our own century, where people continue to think and discuss the meaning and relevance of the liberal arts. If I were to say anything about the liberal arts tradition and liberal arts history, one of the most compelling parts about it is it teaches us how to think, it teaches us how to learn, and it teaches us how to see life and the connections of life in a way no other experience in education has ever done before.